you are a candidate that's a continuity, a sequel to that, or you are going against, you're trying to build your own story. And candidates must not only tell stories, but they must tell compelling narratives about themselves. No? Hindi na pwede ngayon yung motherhood statements na sinasabi ni Richard. No? It should be more than the motherhood statement. You can have all this grand principle, the big idea, but it should all be tied into, a story that can easily be told and that will have an impact on the voters. Okay. Bilis pa. Okay. In the post-EDSA regime, there are two basic narratives that's been at play. One is what we call the reformist narrative, or what we call the good governance narrative. No? So from the time of Cory Aquino, whose storyline began with assassination of her husband, Ninoy Aquino, in a good versus evil kind of epic battle between the Aquino and the Marcoses, yellow versus red, and then they're willing to die for good governance. They're willing to die for democracy. No? And everyone who goes against them are not part of that good narrative or that grouping of reformists. So the story is basically this: trust me, I'm morally good. Daang matuwid. No? Diba? But the other one is the more basic, because the reformist narrative is a middle-class elitist narrative. No? It's part of the middle-class aspiration. It's what we call moral politics. Diba? We are in a mess right now because it's not the victim's fault. It's not the poor voters' fault. It's the fault of the irresponsible elites who's been saying, trust me, we're good. Right? This is the same thing that's happened in other Southeast Asian countries, if you look at it. If you look at Thailand, they're in a mess right now because of this kind of narrative. You look at Indonesia, despite Jokowi, what's the other alternative? The other one is, trust me, I'm one of you. So, makamasa, makamahirap, diba? Nog-nog. Diba? And that is the narrative of populism. But then again, while you are compassionate to the poor, you're willing to help the poor, no? The populist narrative is hidden behind the subtext of Robin Hood. Corruption is just one way of helping the poor. Hindi rin naman pwede yun, di ba? So these are the two narratives, that's the major narratives in the post-Marcos era. In 1992, no? If you look at the machine and the market votes, and if you look at the three components, money, party, government, image issues, of course, money, Boss Danding had the most money. No? Speaker Ramon Mitra had the biggest political machinery. No? He controlled majority of the Senate, majority of the House, all the governors, all the mayors. No? Machinery will bring him the presidency. But no. There was Miriam. Miriam back then was really a potent candidate. The Miriam we're seeing now is just a pale shadow of her old self. Miriam back then electrified the youth vote, the middle class, the reformist vote. But there was another reformist, a non-politician who made an image, a good impression during the EDSA revolution, and who was protected, Cory Aquino, from all the attempts. And that was Fidel Ramos. So it was a toss-up between Miriam and Ramos. And of course, we know that it was a field of 7. There were 4 serious candidates. Ramos won because of the anointment of President Aquino, Cory Aquino. But that anointment was only an add-on because Ramos was already in the circuit. Okay? So the lesson here, machinery by itself is not enough. market image is not enough. You need an astute mix of both image, issue, and machinery, and tie it all up with a good narrative. Okay? So what happened in the next 1998, no? In the field of 11, Joe de Venecia, the speaker from Pangasinan, no? The builder of the Grand Pangasinan Express, political express, no? The Grand Coalition, the Rainbow Coalition, no? Again, just like Mitra, he had the biggest machinery. But ERAP was unbeatable from day one. So it was just a game of trying to catch up with the number one throughout the entire campaign. Never did Vice President Joseph Estrada at that time lost the number one slot in all the SWS surveys conducted at that time. But you also had the reformists. The reformist vote was actually dispersed into 5 candidates, what we call lords. No? Alfredo Lim, who was the very first in the post-EDSA political regime to campaign on a law and order, I will kill criminals, no? Kind of thing. He was called RoboCop back then. No? So Lim Osmeña, Tito Osmeña of Cebu, who fought on the issue of probinsya muna development, no? Local development. No? And then you have Raul Roco and his Technicolor shirts, no? Hawaiian shirts. And he was the darling of the youth back then. No? And then you have De Villa, who was supposedly the continuity candidate of Ramos. No? And then Santiago again. In 2004, because of the extraordinary manner by which Gloria Macapagal Arroyo ascended into the presidency, it has become her obsession, no, to win by a large margin of 1 million to cement her legitimation, because she ascended into the presidency via the second EDSA People Power Revolution. And of course, the populist candidate was FPJ. No? And you had all those other, Ping Lacson again running on law and order, and then you have Bangon Pilipinas, no? Brother Eddie Villanueva, and then Raul Roco again. But at this time, he was already stricken by cancer. No? 2010, the backlash over the Hello Garci, the death of Tita Cory, no? Out of nowhere, Benigno Aquino, because it was a larger than life, it was a revival of the 1985 narrative of good versus evil. The reformists are back to save the day. No? ERAP is no longer as potent, but came in second. Villar had the money and the most LSS political jingle in history. No? Ano ba niyo? Nakaligo ka na ba sa dagat ng basura? That's the most perfect, no? Then, of course, Ibo, no? Who depended on the government machinery, not knowing that Gloria already cut a deal with Villar. Now, this year's election is quite unique, no? Because for the first time, it's a repeat of actually 1992, in which you only have 4 serious candidates, but with a twist, because there's no clear front runner, and the difference among the 4 is actually within the statistical margin. No? So it's really going to be tight, and it makes for an exciting election. But I'm also worried because we're opening up the possibility of another legitimation crisis. No? So that's a problem. No? In terms of machinery, Mar Rojas is the new Mitra and Joe de Venecia. And then Binay, of course, has that masa vote, no? From the ERAP tradition. No? But you have here the Kalisi, no? The hybrid. No? The Kalisi is a hybrid of both the reformists and the populists. She appeals to the middle-class reformists, but at the same time, she is adored by the masses because she is the adopted daughter of FPJ. Then of course, the other guy who's now capturing the imagination of the millennials. No? If you look at the results of the survey, as I was saying, it's too close to call. No? So, but then again, you will see, at least in the SWS survey since last year, only 2 candidates have been fighting it out for the top slot. Diba? Binay and Po. And if Po is disqualified, it remains to be seen whether her votes will go to either Binay or Duterte. No? There's even a possibility that a part of her vote might even shift tomorrow. Because she's a hybrid candidate. And then, Duterte, as later on I'll show you. I'll just show you another one. This one's Pulse Asia. No? It's the same trend. Except for, at one point in September 2015, Rojas reached the highest, which is number 2. No? Then after that, went back to number 3. No? And then at one point in Pulse, in SWS, Duterte in November hit number 1. No? But now it's back to the seesaw between Binay and Po. So it's going to be quite interesting, no? How it's going to be played out. Lilo report, which is also another offshoot of SWS and Pulse Asia, no? You can see the trend, no? The breakdown in NCR, North, Central Luzon, South Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. You can see that Po is strong in Luzon, no? And Duterte is very strong in Mindanao. That's what we call the regional bailiwicks, no? The ethno-linguistic flows. Now, the problem with Duterte, he has a core support of regional voters from Mindanao and a core support from the demographic millennials. No? So from geographical and demographic, he has Mindanao and he has the millennials. Now the problem with his style is that because of his tough image, that's the reason why his core supporters are loyal to him. But he needs to grow his base of support beyond his core supporters, beyond Mindanao and beyond the millennials. Now the problem is that if he recalibrates his style, suddenly he becomes holier than Pope Francis, no? That will result in the loss of his core supporters. But if he continues with his tough guy cursing image, for every core supporter that he has, he loses 2 or 3 potential supporters. So that's the dilemma with Duterte. Of course, with Grace Po, it's that disqualification thing, no? That's preventing her from surging, no? Because that's an uncertainty that's stopping potential supporters and financiers from being, and even voters. No? Okay.